In this session, we're going to go ahead and continue with what gets generated from OABuilder for the employee object. We kind of went through the employee object itself, its references and calculate properties and stuff, how it relates to the database or the data source, the delegate itself, and then the next piece is the employee model. The employee model basically forms from the model view control portion of it, basically takes the employee object itself, creates a model for it, and allows for all the connectivity with the other objects to be automated, so that like master detail type relationships, what's called linking, so that a reference object like employee type can be in a drop down list, and as you check or as you select one of them, it will automatically update whatever employee you're on. So all that all those references are built into a way that then could be bindable to the UI and to rest of the application. So the model itself pretty much follows very similar to how the object structure is. It's geared toward its references. So there is a central hub or a hub property here of employees. So we can basically take a hub of employees, so we can select all the employees who have a birth date for next week. We can take that hub, and then we can use employee model, and then create the employee model using that hub. And now with this model, we have all the other models set up that we can then bind to our UI. Okay, just real quick before we go any further on this, all the UI components can be bound directly with hubs, so we really don't have to go through this step. And in previous on previous projects, that's how we did it. We basically had used a hub, and we could bind those to our components. We could also bind OA objects individually, but usually a lot of components deal with collections and stuff like that. So that's what we'd use the hubs and stuff. What we've been using lately on the projects, instead of knowing how the relationships are working, and you got a drop down list that then whenever somebody chooses something, when the user chooses something from that drop down, it needs to automatically update another object in another collection. We wanted to automate that. The hubs allow you to do that and to automatically create the relationships between the hubs and stuff. And what this object does is it does all that code for us. So it does the binding between the hubs even. So again, master detail relationships and stuff like that. So basically this has a bunch of different collections and all of the models for each one of those. So then it can kind of reach out into this sort of object graph, I guess, of models. And then it's bindable, and these components are already automated to work together. And basically that's all this code does all the way through, is getting these other models that are used or have a reference from employee model. So if we look at, we know that employee has awards, each employee has could have or has a collection of awards, and again the collection could be empty or have many in it. So what this will do is create a hub of these employee awards and set some information about what you're able to do with that model. Are you allowed to add? Are you allowed to remove? And these are specific to the relationship that the employee has with employee awards. So different things are turned on and off, so to speak. From this information, this can drive the UI. It gives the UI more information. It allows the UI components to basically work with a model, and since that model is already working with the other models, kind of tying together into an object graph, is everything can then be automatically working together, and you kind of get this reactive model. It's basically what you get from that. Employee JFC is the swing component that represents an employee, and it basically takes the model, takes all the hubs that are related, references and stuff like that that are related for and used by employee, and then lays out of a UI component, and it's pretty big also. It's 3,300 lines, and this is a really busy object, so the code is very large, but it's basically cookie cutter type code. So there's information here. There's a card panel that's being used. There's a tab that's being used, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up an employee here. Here is an employee. Here's a UI for it right here. Here's all the different tabs. Here's employee information with all the UI components that handle all the properties, that handle all of the one type of information. So here's employee type. If there's some set up, this would be in the list. There's another component, so if we actually want to go into that, pop that up and see that, we can do that. Like here, we can go into the program by hitting the go to, and that's going to show us all the information about the program that this employee is in. And again, that program's another object, and here's all the information that it has, all the setup and stuff. And then and you have these relationships again through the references, and and that object has references, and that's kind of how we got to the employee. So all these components are basically laid out in a custom way on how it relates to the employee object. So employee has addresses. Okay, we can't add an address because in our model we said it basically can create one only. Employee has or could have other employees. So this is set up so we can add an employee that's already in the system, or we can create a new employee from here. And then there could be methods and stuff, and we didn't give a name. That's why there's null here. So if we go back to the model, we can see that. And right there, it's to change, it's to reset their password is what that button's supposed to do. And then here's the employees awards, and again, there's no new button. Okay, but from the model it says that employee has awards. So how do we create a new one? Well, it also says that an award has a type of award. So what we need to do is pick the type, and then it will automatically create the award for us, and then have the type already set there for us. So it has an add button. Okay, the add button is going to give us a list. Instead of popping up a search, it would show all of the awards that are set up for this type of employee, and none of them have been set up yet. Otherwise, you'd see one in here. We could click one, it would automatically create it. If we go to e-cards, same thing. If this employee wants to have an e-card, instead of searching for all of them, it's a subset. In another session, we talked about how that's set up. So right now, there's one set up, so we can have that. If we wanted this set up so they can only pick the e-card once, it wouldn't even show them that e-card. But in this case, they can, as far as business rules or whatever is concerned, they can reuse that e-card and send it to as many people as they want. And so if we look at AE card, an e-card then has information about it. It has its message that we can type in here, and then it has recipients. So as far as recipients, that's looking for the users. So if I want to search for a user, I can actually go in here, do a search, and I have some sample data in here. I can automatically go into this user, and that's the recipients, and kind of keep going through this to figure out the list of everybody I want to get this e-card. I want to go into this employee, and again, the model, when I modeled this out, you can determine what the UI is going to be able to do, functionality and stuff like that. But for the most part, it defaults to what we want it to be able to do. So how the JFC is laid out according to the model goes back to how the code generation's done. It builds it all into these components. Like here's the tree nodes. There's the edit panels. There's the table panels, the toolbar buttons and panels, and the menu, and all this information is laid out in these separate components. Now the employee has a reference to all of the other UI components that the object has a reference to. So built into this is it also has methods to get to the UI components that it needs for those. So in this case, an employee has a parent employee, which would be their manager. So it will create another employee JFC component based on the employee's manager, and then it will override and set some information about how it needs to be configured. The location, same thing. So this is all the references. So it will basically, in this case, here's employee awards. So employee has employee awards. We want to go get that employee award JFC, and then we're going to use this inner class functionality within Java to override some of its methods on how they work and if they exist or not, and basically customize it to fit how employee award's relationship to employee needs to behave. So by being able to inherit what's already in that object in that class, override, just shift around some of the behavior a little bit, then it's totally customized for how it works within this. This type of code generation was really difficult to get it to this point, but basically it does this. It sets up the model, it sets them up into these UI structures, and then it's able to generate in a way that then makes this reusable by basically just changing some of the behavior and then getting it to work accordingly. So this is something that's reusable for other component sets and stuff. Right now I'm showing how it does it within the Java Foundation classes for a Swing application. And then that's pretty much how it all the way through. The last thing it will have is it will have a main method here somewhere. Here's all the functionality for all the different commands. If it's allowed to do stuff, turn stuff on and off, and then it will have a main. And basically what the main does is let you run this standalone. And this was really helpful when we were troubleshooting, trying to get all this, again, back to that inner class and how it will mix and match stuff, get all that to work. But it's nice to see that we can do that. The employee search object is basically, in our model for employee, we can define what we want to be searchable. So the search properties, all this information, and again, it's not just information just within this object, but we can reach over to other objects that are related to it. And then display name, what we want included as far as searching and stuff like that. And then what it will create is an observable object, another OA object, except local only, so this isn't kept in sync with other servers that are running. And this also has a employee, a UI class that goes with this. Again, just like the employee has a UI class, the search also does. So then if we look at, let's see, location, employee. Here's what the search screen would look like. In another session we talked about how from companies, this is a tree on here, and again we could drill down through the company and find the employees and click on them that way. We can do a search here. There's a bunch of different flags turned on and off that we can set. If it searches on another object, it knows how to either let us go search on it or put in criteria about that to then build the query from. And again, what this will do is it will put together a query based on this information, and we're going to look at that now. So the employee search object has all of the searchable type information, and then it builds in a query builder. And again, this can be done by hand, but it's a lot easier when it's generated. So what this will do is basically it will create a select for us, which is a data source independent way of querying a backend database and stuff, and it will basically build out a SQL statement for us. An object query language based, and it's basically looking at all the data on the search form and figured out what was filled out and stuff, put together a SQL statement, and this object, it's object query language, it's not really SQL yet, It will also include all of its arguments because it can use question marks as placeholders, a sort order, and then it will go ahead and create that and then return that back. And that can be used to then populate a hub, or we could iterate through that through this select itself of all the values that came back. The employee filter is similar to a employee search, but it's criteria that we want to be able to search or filter off of. And sometimes those are input values. Like if you want to find everybody has an input in the next X amount of days, you would put in how many days you want that to be, stuff like that. And it will basically build out the same type of stuff, the components, the base object, and it will a filter object itself. So this employee filter, what it has is it has a method basically that it's going to generate. For employee right now, I think we have two filters. One of them is to get everybody that has a birthday coming up, or I think another one for an anniversary. But basically what this will do is select them all, or take a list of employees, run them through this criteria to know if it's true or false. Does this user have a birthday in the next 7 days or whatever amount of time? And, or I guess this case, I guess we set it up to be 30 or something. And that will drive a filtering process and decide what goes into a collection class. So we can basically have a hub of everybody in the company. We can then have a empty hub. We could then create a employee filter and then give it the master hub and the empty hub, and the filter will automatically keep it populated with everybody who has a birthday in the next X amount of days. And again, within the application that's built or generated for this, is it's automatically using all these. So when it creates the UI and you have a way of picking what filter you want and stuff like that, is it will automatically it's automatically using all this information. So that's it for employee, and kind of example of running this all the way through.